influencers who are paid to sell you what they don't actually use. So, you put your trust in your favorite influencer. You see those perfect videos, the stack posts, the morning routines, but a lot of the time they're paid campaigns. Half of these influencers don't even know what they're promoting. Maybe they've just been paid for a month promotion or for that ad. So some of them are just reading off a script written by the brand. They don't have to disclose if it's all framed that it's paid content. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Chris Gethin podcast. Now, today I'm going to be talking about the supplement industry and 12 things in particular that the supplement industry doesn't want you to know. And, for instance, here's the ugly truth. When you buy your so-called performance powder or your pump pre-workout or clean supplement, it's not always what you think. You could be drinking bird feathers, animal fur, or even human hair. You're swallowing cheap chemical fillers, artificial sweeteners that can disrupt your gut microbiome. Basically, you're paying for marketing hype and not real science. But the entire industry, they bank on one thing that you're never going to check. So today I'm going to pull the curtain back. And these are the things that the supplement industry don't want you to know, because once you know this, you'll probably never look at your supplement cupboard the same way again. Now, I've been in the industry for 25, nearly 30 years now as a writer, editor for a lot of the top publications, editor-in-chief of bodybuilding.com. I've had several supplement companies. I've been around this for a long, long time. And I've seen what happens behind the glossy labels, the sourcing, the shortcuts, those dirty secrets. But supplements can be powerful tools. But most of all, what's out there for the most part is absolute trash. What is written on a tub often has nothing to do with what's inside it. So let's go through some of these points here, okay? Number one, non-fermented amino acids. Now, I shook the tree back in 2014 when I exposed that the majority of the amino acids out there were derived from bird feathers, animal fur, or human hair. So people usually gag when they find that one out. If the amino acids on your, say, essential amino acid tub or your glutamine tub do not say fermented, then they're probably made of bird feathers, animal fur, or human hair. And I'm not exaggerating. Most cheap amino acids come from like a keratin, a protein found in feathers, fur, or hair. They're hydrolyzed in acid, filtered, bleached, and then flavored to taste like tropical candy with artificial flavors and artificial sweeteners, I might add. And so, look, you may be thinking that you're sipping something clean, but you're basically drinking byproducts of the animal and chemical industry. If the label doesn't say fermented or vegan fermented, don't buy it, because they're not going to tell you where their amino acids come from, because they don't want you to know. So, look for companies like Unmatched. It isn't just Unmatched that do fermented. There are other brands, but this is why I started Unmatched Supplements, because I didn't want any of that crap. Now, let's go on to number two. A lot of the ingredients that are used are not only generic, but they're untested ingredients. And they use them in place of a lot of clinically studied versions. Now, there's some times that the generic is just as good as the trademark. I get it. But a lot of the time, you're not going to be able to replace that. So, for instance, with beta-alanine, yeah, you can get a good beta-alanine. You don't necessarily need to go for carnosine. But when you are looking at things like your ashwagandha or your creatine, just try to look to see where they come from. If they're swapping clinically tested trademark ingredients like KSM 66, like Infinity, like Creatine or PKTP for cheap generic ones, a lot of the time there's zero testing, zero consistency, zero quality, zero safety. It's like buying a Rolex, basically, getting one from a street stall in Bangkok. It looks the same until it breaks 2 years later, or 2 weeks later, and you realize that those components are far from the same. If the ingredients do not have that symbol or specify its source, it could be garbage. No testing, no human data, there's no guarantee. So, there are brands that you can rely on, and there's brands that rely on you not knowing the difference. But now you do. Let's go on to number 3, artificial sweeteners, the 0-calorie chemicals that can wreck your gut, hormones, and brain. So artificial sweeteners are the dirty little secret that almost every supplement on the market has. They taste good, they mix well, they're really cheap, doesn't take any time whatsoever to sweeten a product because it pretty much does it for you. But here's what you're not told. The long-term use of like sucralose, ACE-K, aspartame can disrupt your microbiome. It can reduce that insulin sensitivity. It can raise inflammation. It can alter your body's dopamine response, which controls your hunger, your cravings, your motivation, your focus. And studies are showing links between artificial sweetener intake and metabolic dysfunction, anxiety, gut permeability, and even the possibility of stroke risk. Now, with that's obviously coming with overconsumption, and the WHO itself released a statement saying they do not recommend non-sugar artificial sweeteners for weight management anymore. So let that sink in. The very thing people use to stay lean may be contributing to insulin resistance and weight gain over time. But here's the real scary part. These compounds accumulate. You're not just consuming them from one product. They're in your EAAs, they're in your hydration, they're in your pre-workout, they're in your post-workout, they're in your protein powder. It is everywhere. And of course, if you are going to Starbucks and you're using artificial sweeteners there in your coffee, if you're having a Diet Coke or an energy drink, you're having more artificial sweeteners. Your gut health is definitely paying for that. And when your gut goes downhill, your recovery, your hormones, your mood, your ability to lose fat will follow. Okay. Let's go on to number 4, conventional whey isolate versus grass-fed whey isolate. Now, most of the whey protein on the stores shelves is from grain-fed, confined cattle that is pumped with hormones, antibiotics, vaccines, genetically modified feed that is sprayed with glyphosate, the same chemicals used in Roundup or weed killer. And these glyphosate residues have been detected in multiple protein powders. Doesn't just kill weeds, it disrupts gut bacteria, affects your detox pathways in the liver, and has been linked to fertility and hormone issues. And that is just the beginning. Grain-fed cows often produce milk with lower omega-3s and 6s, altered amino acid ratios. So you could be literally feeding your body with inflammatory protein. But the grass-fed whey comes from cows that eat what nature intended, grass, resulting in cleaner fat ratios, less hormone exposure, fewer contaminants like glyphosate. And it's not just about feeling good. It's about what those residues can do to you and your long-term health, your hormones such as testosterone, your recovery, your skin, your energy. And as you guys may know, that we use grass-fed whey from UK pasture-raised cows. So they're not just like grain-fed and grass-finished. They start on grass and they finish on grass. So if your whey doesn't say grass-fed or cold processed and microfiltered and third-party tested, it's really not worth your money. Number 5, most tubs are only half or 3/4 filled. Now, you may go into a store like your vitamin shop and you'll see these tubs that are pretty big, and then you may see one that is much, much smaller, but it's the same price. And you think, wow, how is that? I'm going to be wasting my money here if I get the smaller tub. So you get the bigger one. It's all about perception, correct? So most supplement tubs are literally half full, sometimes three-quarter filled. You know, you open that big flashy container, expect value, and half of it is here. And that's called slack fill. It's a legal deception. It makes you think you're getting more, while the actual content is reduced to save money on the product and increase margins. But unmatched, again, we don't play that game. If you look at our tubs, sometimes our smaller tub on that shelf is heavier than that tub that is much, much bigger because we are filled to the very, very top. Every gram you pay for, you get. So when you see a massive tub at Costco or Walmart or Vitamin Shop, just remember, big doesn't mean quality and it doesn't mean full. And full doesn't mean fair. So if a company can't fill the damn tub properly, what do you think they're doing to the bloody ingredients inside? Anyway, let's go on to number 6. High-dose caffeine pre-workouts. So this is the stimulated crash you mistake for energy. So those high-stim pre-workouts that give you that face smell to make your heart pound, they're not giving you energy. They're robbing you of it because here's what actually happens. Big caffeine doses constrict your blood vessels. So your muscle pumps are not improved. They can get worse, not better. You piss out more water because caffeine acts like a diuretic. So you're dehydrated before you even start training. Your cortisol spikes from the caffeine, and that stress hormone breaks down muscle tissue. It can increase insulin resistance. And what are you trying to do in the gym? You're trying to build muscle, aren't you? Okay, so that's the opposite to what you want before a workout. And then if you see other ingredients like maybe yahimbi or synephedrine, then you're flirting with heart palpitations and anxiety on top of that. Now, you're not superhuman. You're basically chemically hijacked. So the results are you're not going to get as good pump. You're not going to get as good recovery. You're possibly not going to get as good sleep if you're a slow caffeine metabolizer. You're not going to get as good results, okay? And the next day, you're probably going to need more caffeine to even feel normal. That is not performance. That is dependency. So, you know, look for pre's that have performance focus. So you've got pure citrulline, not citrulline malate. You've got beta-alanine. You got paraxanthine. So paraxanthine is a metabolite of caffeine that has all the benefits like the mental energy, the memory recall, the euphoric focus without any of the downside effects, okay? So your performance will be smoother and your recovery will actually happen and you'll be able to put on muscle. Number 7, big box retail brands. So if you see those flashy tubs in your Costco's or your Walmarts, those aren't deals, that is dilution. To hit the price points, to get on these shelves, big box brands usually have to strip down the formula. They reduce the dosages. They swap the premium raws for other cheaper ones. They overload with flavors and fillers and spend the rest on marketing. So that giant $30 tub looks like a steal, but it's a race to the bottom of quality, not price. So you get what you pay for. And if the price seems too good to be true, that's because it's built for shelf appeal, not for performance. So choose a brand value formula over flash. Ask for batch testing. The truth is in the data, not the label design. If these companies have to pay like a crap load for online marketing, a crap load for influencers to market, and then a crap load to sit on those shelves and make a large margin, how much do you think that product is actually costing? And then you got the prop blends. A lot of companies have shied away from that now, which is great, but there's still a lot of people using it. And it is the legal way to lie. So you'll see something like Muscle Matrix, 5,000 milligram, followed by a list of like 20 ingredients. What they don't tell you is how much of each one of those ingredients that you're actually getting. So it could be 4,900 milligram of cheap filler, 100 milligram of the good stuff. It's like saying your meal has chicken, broccoli, and rice. but forgetting to mention that it's 99% rice. So if you see a prop blend, put the tub down, unless it's obviously something like an antioxidant blend, which, to have all those greens in there, or antioxidants, it makes sense. But if they are ingredients that need to have efficacious dosages that is proven in the studies to have an effect, then you obviously have to see the transparency. Okay. So let's go on to number 9, adulterated botanicals and contaminated plant extracts. So, herbal ingredients may sound healthy, like your dihydroberberine, your ashwagandha. They're natural, they're traditional, and they're trending. But here's what the labels don't tell you. A lot of the generic ingredients are adulterated, they're underdosed, and contaminated with pesticides and heavy metals. So you really need to check that your turmeric is standardized to like 95%. And does it have like these weird delivery mechanisms, or doesn't include, you need to have like things like piperine or bioprene, for instance, to help with the absorb, because the supplement industry relies on these vague claims like herbal blend because it allows them to include trace amounts of the real activities and pad the rest with inert powder. So let's go on to number 10, vegan proteins. Now, vegan proteins doesn't automatically mean clean. In fact, most of these proteins have high levels of heavy metals like lead, arsenic, glyphosate as well, contaminated soils. So most people switch to plant-based thinking it's a detox when they're just swapping it for a higher toxin. So buy only plant proteins that show the heavy metal testing results for each batch, not just the brand promise. And then we'll go into another one, 11, influencers who are paid to sell you what they don't actually use. So, you put your trust in your favorite influencer. You see those perfect videos, the stack posts, the morning routines, but a lot of the time they're paid campaigns. Half of these influencers don't even know what they're promoting. Maybe they've just been paid for a month promotion or for that ad. So some of them are just reading off a script written by the brand. They don't have to disclose if it's all framed that it's paid content. So remember, the person selling you that favorite might be, I'm saying, cashing a check every month just to say that, and they don't actually even use that product. So if they can show their real blood work, their real supplement cupboard, or explain the science, don't always follow the face, follow the facts. Number 12, you're buying labels, not formulas. So most of the industry doesn't sell supplements, they sell the labels. They design the tub first, not the formula. They invest in influencer contracts before the R&D. I say this because I've seen it. They'd rather spend $50,000, okay, on, say, flavoring and marketing or that influencer than the $5K on that raw testing. So you're not always paying for quality, you're paying for marketing psychology. So if you care about your body and your performance, your longevity, demand better. Ask questions, read the labels, demand proof. Because this industry doesn't change from the top down, it changes from the bottom up when the consumer starts calling their bluff. Okay, so if you found this episode valuable, share it, because most people have no idea what they're actually putting in their body, because the supplement industry has no problem selling you deception, but you deserve better than that. Remember, you are in the health and fitness industry, I assume, if you're listening to this. So shouldn't supplements be healthy and not actually taken away from that promise of being in the health and fitness industry? Unfortunately, they do. So do your homework. And, if you're one of my clients, send me your stack this week. I'll audit it myself. But chances are you're taking Unmatched Supplements or any other brand that I do suggest anyway. But do yourself that supplement audit checklist. Pull out your tubs, check your labels, see who's honest, and see who's full of it. If you like this episode, please do like, share, but please subscribe to whatever channel that you're listening to. And until next week, This is a Chris Gethin podcast, and I am out.